If we're going to see crime rates go up in the rural communities, what are the root causes? What are the stats? Why exactly is happening? Is it domestic abuse? Is it drugs? Is it what is it, and what's happening? Is it gun violence? Is it So those are the things that we should be breaking down, and those are the things that we should be trying to address quicker.
Once upon a time, living in a small town in Canada pretty much guaranteed you a virtually crime-free lifestyle. There was almost no crime in suburban areas, especially in the outer suburbs, bedroom communities, and small towns. But recently, Stats Canada had a shocking number. This is actually information from Stats Canada saying that rural residents face violent crime rates nearly 50% higher than those in major cities, upending the myth of that idyllic small town, that picturesque postcard Canadian lifestyle. To talk more about the change in way crime is affecting everyone in Canada, is always thrilled to be joined by Paul McCucci. Paul, how are you?
Good, Jim. How are you doing? Yeah,
Good.
you know what? It's an interesting stat. I read it too. And if you look at small towns and you look at the resources they have for law enforcement, you start to understand. And as our law enforcement, just like you consider all of our trades right now, whether we talking about plumbers, electricians, you have to look at law enforcement. And as law enforcement gets older, that skill is eroding too. So as our Canadian society is starting to age, and this is all of us, unfortunately, that's life. We're having RCMPs members retiring. We're having local police officers retiring. We're having people deciding that it's time to quit. And with everything going on right now, whether it be overrun jails, overrun crime sprees in different areas, listen, they probably are thinking this is the right time to go. And you and I talked about it before the show. There was a time, I guess, even in law enforcement, that when you went to work, you were always concerned about your safety, but there was an unwritten rule that parts of the communities, different communities, didn't see a lot of crime.
That's right.
Right. And now, the people that are farming, the people that are moving to the farms, the people we're seeing getting involved in rural communities are way different than they were.
It was unheard of. And to the point now, there's also the whole vibe that, reducing the police, cut the police. We don't need police. So for a lot of young people looking at a career as a first responder, they're looking at paramedic, they're looking at firefighter, they're looking at different things, because to be a firefighter, to be a paramedic is still well respected by people of all stripes in the community, whereas being a police officer, it's not easy. And it's not just the physical threat and strain, but the mental strain that they go through. A lot of them, I see why they get out and go to private security or different ways of life, because you can only take so much.
Well, and the danger, right? I think for the most part, in rural communities, being a police officer or police enforcement, quite frankly, has a lot of other issues, right? So a lot of times when you arrive on that farm, that perpetrator, that criminal, whatever, they have a high-powered weapon. They're familiar with, guns. Quite frankly, they have scopes. They know how to shoot a weapon
with a lot of open space between the alleged and the police officer.
Exactly. You're approaching from a mile or two off, so they can see you coming, and then you have to get out of your car. You have to approach the house. Mm-hmm. And that's where we hear these horror stories of these people. So, as they get older and they decide they want to retire, now you have this void. And that void, quite frankly, on top of that, criminals that are moving contraband, guns, everything in the rural areas are more sophisticated. So they're more sophisticated as far as, tracking weaponry. So here we are, is it any surprise that we're seeing an increase in crime in rural communities? I don't think so.
Once upon a time, if a lot of us who maybe were the child of an immigrant, you lived in maybe a small apartment in the inner city of a big city in Canada, your family made a little money, you moved to maybe a house, and eventually you moved to one of those idyllic suburban communities, like a Vaughan, Ontario, like a Surrey, BC, out of downtown Vancouver, all across the country. And that was thought of safe schools, safe neighborhoods, maybe a few speeding tickets, maybe a drunk driving, but no major crime to worry about. And that has changed in such a huge way in the last 10 years that we're seeing these, what we thought was the ultimate safe community to raise their family, there's all these gun violence crimes being taking place on a regular basis, Paul.
Well, it's interesting. I just got back, and I mentioned a little bit before the show to you. I actually just got back from a wedding in Windsor. I was involved in the farming community years ago down in that area. And
Nice part of the province, nice part of the country.
it was, right over the Ambassador Bridge, and I enjoyed it, quite frankly, had a very interesting experience, learned a lot about something I didn't know, and that was farming at the time. And, it was nothing to go to sleep at night and not lock your doors.
Oh, keys still in the truck.
Well, I was shocked. So after, when got up in the morning, made my way up Boulette Street to go to the wedding, and I was just shocked at the community.
It's changed that much.
The boarded up buildings, the homeless people on the street, the basically apartments were just dilapidated. And I was like, wow, this is crazy how this community has changed. And I was there in a time when 1 million Americans used to come over because of the drinking age, and it was a party city,
and the
it was
exchange,
go-go, and the exchange, and it was very vibrant. Now it was kind of an eroded, rundown city, which, quite frankly, has lots of these rural issues going on. And I was like, oh, this is, it was funny because, it was there, and I was with an old friend, and I was enjoying, and, I was happy for him and his daughter and everything else. But when I was leaving, I was thinking to myself, is this the right place for him to retire now? Like, is this really a nice place? And I'm not picking on Windsor, but I'm just saying this is kind of one of those case studies that we're seeing across the nation where, to your point, as people slowed down, they would go to the retirement community in a smaller town. Well, if smaller towns are going to see higher crime rates, where do we, our elderly go to kind of slow down, retire, have a nice segue, into the latter years of their life?
I think about Mike and Brady on their cross Canada trip and some of the communities they're going through Northern Ontario, across the prairies. And for a lot of years, a lot of those communities where, like, it's a good place, raise a family, have a career, have a job. The big crime, the big issues are in Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, the big city, but not there. But now you have fentanyl and crime and gangs and violence that has spread to parts of the country that didn't exist before. And you have it's a great point, Paul. Where do you go in this country now that you think truly is safe?
So I'm running a triathlon. This is a crazy story. I'm running a triathlon years ago. This is a few years ago. And I'm training. So I'm doing my bike training in the morning.
Yeah, of course.
At 4 a.m, way out, about 40 minutes outside of Toronto, because the rolling hills, out towards Highway 6 and all that. And I go and I do like 50 to 100 kilometers in the morning. Nice. Yeah, I was doing a lot of biking because getting ready. And I'm biking along. I got my head down. I'm in my last leg because I'd had to go to work after. I'm in my last leg to finish off. I'm trying to pedaling hard. I got my head down. I'm going downhill and I'm flying down. I'm feeling really good. I'm about to finish. All of a sudden, I look up, and it's the drug enforcement guys in the middle of the road pulling me off my bike into the ditch. And so I'm like, holy cow. Like, and they're like, hands up, and they're pulling me off. And then I'm actually being brought down the ditch. They're about to do a raid on a farm adjacent to where I'm riding, right? So I got my bike. I'm all sweaty. I'm laying in the weeds, right? With one of them, because he's left behind to protect me now, because they pulled a civilian out and they don't want him to be harmed, right? And so he's like, I can't talk. So I had to lay there for like 40 minutes until they had actually made the raid.
Like something in the movies, Paul.
It felt like it. I was like, wow, this is my favorite riding spot. But nowadays, what was not the norm is actually the norm, because when you're driving along and you're looking at that farm and what people are storing on that farm, it's not crops anymore.
Right.
And so, quite frankly, there's a lot of, as people are moving things across the nation now, things that we never thought about before. And so now that's what we're incurring. But unfortunately, that's starting to change the composition of these cities and also the crime rates. So, as we always do, Jim, now's the time that we need to start talking about how to mitigate that. So
have a serious conversation as a nation.
Of, if we're going to see crime rates go up in the rural communities, what are the root causes? What are the stats? Why exactly is happening? Is it domestic abuse? Is it drugs? Is it what is it? And what's happening? Is it gun violence? So those are the things that we should be breaking down, and those are the things that we should be trying to address quicker.